What if the Great Flood wasn't just a myth? What if entire civilizations, cities, languages, knowledge were wiped clean from history? All in a matter of days. This is not the story of Noah nor Gilgamesh alone. It's a story that stretches across continents, from the Andes to Mesopotamia, from India to the lost depths of the Mediterranean. It's the story of the flood that buried more than just land. It buried our past. Across every continent, in nearly every ancient culture, there exists a story of a great flood. The names change: Noah in the Hebrew Bible, Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Manu in the Sanskrit Vedas, yet the core narrative remains eerily similar. A god or gods decide that humanity has become corrupt. A chosen man is warned. He builds a vessel. The waters rise. The world is destroyed, then reborn. In Mesopotamia, the story of Utnapishtim predates the biblical flood by over 1,000 years. In India, Manu is warned by a talking fish, an avatar of Vishnu, to prepare for a great deluge. In the highlands of Peru, the Incas told of a massive flood sent by the gods to purge wickedness. The Aboriginal people of Australia, the tribes of sub-Saharan Africa, even the ancient Chinese each have flood stories woven into their cultural memory. How is it that civilizations separated by oceans and millennia all share the same tale? Was it coincidence, collective imagination, or was there a global memory, an event so catastrophic it etched itself into human consciousness forever? While myth is dismissed by many as fiction, geology tells another story. Roughly 12,000 years ago, Earth transitioned out of the last ice age. Glaciers miles thick began to melt. The result: sea levels rose, not gradually, but catastrophically. In some estimates, up to 80 meters of sea level rise occurred in less than a millennium. This sudden influx of water would have swallowed vast coastal plains, river valleys, and low-lying cities. Entire regions now submerged. Continental shelves might have once hosted civilizations. In the Black Sea, researchers found evidence of a catastrophic flood around 5600 BC. The Mediterranean, once a dry basin until a breach at Gibraltar. Port oceans in the North Sea, once a fertile land called Doggerland, now beneath the waves, the most mysterious. The Younger Dryas event, an abrupt climate shift around 10,800 BC. Some scientists theorize that a comet impact or solar flare triggered the melting of ice sheets and sudden oceanic chaos. But if this was the real Great Flood, who lived in the lowlands before the waters came, and what did we lose beneath the tides? If a great flood truly happened, we might expect to find remnants of ancient structures beneath the sea, and that's exactly what we find. Off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, massive stone formations resembling step pyramids lie beneath the water. Some claim it's a natural formation. Others argue it's man-made, carved long before recorded history. Near Cuba, sonar scans have revealed geometric patterns and large blocks at a depth of over 600 meters. Cuban and Canadian researchers proposed that these may be ruins of an unknown civilization swallowed by water during the last ice age. In India, off the coast of Dwarka, temples believed to belong to Lord Krishna's ancient city have been discovered underwater. Marine archaeologists have documented straight walls, stone ankas, and what appears to be submerged urban planning. Near Malta, the underwater structures of Gardalam and Najdra suggest a prehistoric presence that predates Egypt's pyramids. Could these be isolated cases, or are they fragments of a forgotten world, cities that stood tall before the floodwaters erased them? If so, who built them, and why did history forget? Even after the waters receded, it seems that ancient peoples sought to preserve what was lost. The world's oldest stone structures like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey emerged around 9600 BC, shortly after the Younger Dryas flood events. But Göbekli Tepe isn't a city, it's a monument. A message in stone, its carvings show strange animals, celestial alignments, and symbols that defy interpretation. Some researchers believe it was a temple to remember not just a religion, but an entire world erased. In Egypt, the Sphinx may show signs of water erosion suggesting it existed long before the desert climate. In Peru, megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman survived earthquakes and time, but not the cultural memory of who built them. Why did civilizations begin erecting massive stone temples around the same time across the globe? Were they monuments of hope or warnings from the survivors? If your world drowned, wouldn't you try to leave a message that could not be washed away? While mainstream history outlines a linear rise of civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, it often overlooks global anomalies that suggest advanced human activity far earlier than our textbooks allow. Across the globe, underwater, structures, megalithic ruins, and unexplained artifacts whisper stories of lost worlds. But if these civilizations truly existed, why are they not recorded? What kind of cataclysm could erase entire peoples, cities, and knowledge from the face of the earth? Let us travel across continents and dive into the depths of forgotten time. In the waters off the Bahamas lies the Bimini Road, a linear formation of massive limestone blocks that resemble a paved underwater road. Discovered in 1968, this site has been the center of debate. Is it natural, or is it the remains of a lost city, perhaps even part of Atlantis? Radiocarbon dating of nearby beach rock points to an age of around 10,000 years, overlapping with the end of the Younger Dryas. Could a coastal civilization have been swallowed by the rising seas triggered by glacial melt off the coast of Gujarat? India, marine archaeologists discovered ruins beneath the Arabian Sea stone walls, streets, and artifacts that appear to align with the mythological city of Dwarka, home of the god Krishna. Sonar and underwater imaging reveal a grid-like layout, suggesting intentional urban planning. Carbon dating places the site at over 9,000 years old, long before the accepted timeline of Indian civilization. Could the flooding of such cities have become the origin of regional flood myths? Near the southern Ryukyu Islands of Japan lies the Yonaguni Monument, a submerged structure of terraces, stair-like features, and flat plains. While some argue it's a natural formation, others like marine geologist Dr. Masaaki Kimura believe it shows deliberate human modification. If so, this site may be 12,000 years old, which would make it one of the oldest man-made structures on Earth. The sea level at the time of construction would have been significantly lower, consistent with a pre-flood society. Plato's Atlantis is said to have disappeared around 9,000 years before his time, placing it near 11,500 years ago. Suspiciously close to the end of the Younger Dryas, some researchers propose locations ranging from Santorini to Spain's Donana National Park. Satellite imaging and LiDAR have identified potential substructures under sediment layers, suggesting that what we consider myth might be fragmented memory of a real society wiped out by flooding. Tribes of the Amazon speak of great floods that transformed the jungle, drowning cities and kings. These are not isolated tales. Over 450 geoglyphs found beneath the forest canopy suggest complex societies with road networks and agricultural mastery. Could sudden climate events, massive rains, melting glaciers have led to their disappearance? The Amazon, once believed wild, now appears as a former engineered landscape, hinting at civilizations that didn't vanish but were buried. Göbekli Tepe, a 12,000-year-old temple complex in Turkey, rises as a contradiction, built before agriculture, cities, and writing, yet showing remarkable engineering. Was it constructed by survivors of an earlier civilization, a place of remembrance? Or perhaps a restart point after global devastation? The site's intentional burial is curious. Could it have been hidden to protect sacred knowledge, or was it an effort to preserve memory in the face of an imminent threat like a flood? Recent genetic studies reveal a population bottleneck around 12,000 years ago, suggesting massive loss of life or displacement. Geological cores from Greenland and Antarctica show sudden sediment layers, debris from floods, fires, and dust, signs of a cataclysmic transition. Even myths from cultures as far apart as the Hopi North America, the Dogon Africa, and the Aboriginals Australia speak of a time when the earth was flooded, reshaped, and reborn. Maybe these ancient stories weren't exaggerations, but memories passed down orally through generations. Maybe the flood wasn't just a regional event, but a global reset. And if civilizations like those in Dwarka, Bimini, or Amazonia were indeed real, then we've barely scratched the surface of human history. What else lies beneath the oceans, under the deserts, hidden in mythology? Among all flood legends, none is more iconic than Atlantis, a magnificent island civilization said to have sunk beneath the waves in a single day and night. The story comes from Plato, who claimed it was real, passed down by Egyptian priests, and existed 9,000 years before his time. He described advanced technology, urban planning, concentric rings of canals and walls, and a powerful empire undone by pride and natural catastrophe. Many dismissed it as allegory. But what if it was a distorted memory of a real event? Researchers have looked to the Azores, Antarctica, even the Eye of the Sahara, the Richet structure as possible sites. The timing is suspicious. Plato's timeline aligns roughly with the end of the Younger Dryas, a period of massive floods, glacier melts, and climate chaos. Could Atlantis have been a real civilization wiped out by the Great Flood, and could its memory have echoed through Sumerian myths, the Hebrew Genesis, and global oral traditions? If we forgot a world as grand as Atlantis, what else have we lost? With every lost city came lost wisdom. Flood myths aren't just about destruction. They often follow the same arc. Catastrophe gives survivors, gives knowledge preserved or passed on. From the ancient Sumerians, who wrote of antediluvian kings that ruled for tens of thousands of years, to Hindu texts that speak of sages preserving sacred knowledge during floods, to Mesoamerican codices describing sky gods who taught humans after Cataclysm. There is a haunting implication: some ancient knowledge, mathematics, astronomy, even spiritual systems, did not originate in early cities, but survived into them from older, drowned cultures. Why do so many ancient civilizations start suddenly with advanced knowledge? Why does agriculture, megalithic construction, and astronomy seem to appear fully formed in early human history? We may not just be missing cities, we may be missing a parent civilization, a lost root of all others. What if the Great Flood didn't erase humanity, but reset it? Across continents, ancient myths speak of a small group of survivors, priests, sages, or godlike figures who emerged after the flood and taught the remnants of humanity how to Rebuild. In Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl appears after a cataclysm, bringing knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and law. In Egypt, the god Thoth preserves the books of wisdom after the deluge. In India, the sage Manu survives in an ark and is instructed by a divine fish Vishnu to rebuild the world. These recurring archetypes are too similar to ignore. Could they represent real individuals or lineages who carried forward the memory and knowledge of a drowned civilization? Genetic studies suggest sudden migrations and settlements following the Younger Dryas flood events, patterns of civilization rebooting rather than emerging organically. May be the true story of human civilization is not one of linear progress, but one of cycles: rise, catastrophe, survival, and rebirth. If we accept that a cataclysmic flood truly occurred around 11,000 to 12,000 years ago, we must ask, what else was erased besides cities and temples? What if we're not just talking about stone structures or buried artifacts, but entire worldviews, sciences, spiritual systems, technologies, all washed away by a wall of water and centuries of silence? Imagine a civilization that mastered astronomy, agriculture, medicine, or even rudimentary energy systems long before Mesopotamia. If their knowledge was stored on perishable materials like papyrus, wood, or oral traditions, then it would have vanished completely in a flood. This would explain why ancient cultures like the Egyptians, Sumerians, and Mayans all claimed that their knowledge was gifted by gods or sky beings, perhaps survivors or remnants of a pre-flood global culture. Could the myth of Thoth, Quetzalcoatl, or Oannes refer to the same archetype: civilizers bringing lost knowledge to scattered survivors? What if humanity's first great civilizations weren't landlocked at all but maritime? The ocean would have provided food, transport, and access to trade networks. Coastal cities would have flourished until the seas rose. Today, nearly 70% of the world's coastlines from the Ice Age are underwater, unreachable without deep-sea archaeology. This may be where we lost the entire early chapter of human civilization. Sonar imaging off the coasts of India, Cuba, and Japan have revealed underwater structures, but funding and academic interest remain minimal. Could this be where the Atlantean age now sleeps? We often underestimate ancient engineering. How were 1,000-ton stones moved at Baalbek? Why are Pumapunku's stone cuts so precise? What material did the builders of Göbekli Tepe use for binding? If flood waters swept away workshops, machines, or power systems, we'd be left only with stone and endless speculation. Even myths speak of crystals that powered cities or sound levitation. While these ideas seem fringe today, they could be misunderstood remnants of real technologies lost not due to conspiracy but to catastrophe. A massive flood would have destroyed more than cities. It would have broken lineages. Cultures, languages, and even entire ethnic groups may have been wiped out, leaving only hints in DNA. Recent studies suggest a mysterious ghost population interbred with humans in South America, one not linked to modern Eurasian or African roots. Who were they? Where did they go? The Denisovans, once a myth, are now proven by genome. What other branches of intelligent hominins or cultures may have vanished without trace under flood waters? Flood myths often carry warnings, rituals, and moral lessons. Could they encode ancient spiritual teachings lost to history? From Egyptian mystery schools to Hopi cosmology, many belief systems seem like fragments of something older, deep wisdom distorted by time and reinterpreted by later religions. If the flood was a civilizational reset, it may have erased not just facts but ways of thinking. We may have forgotten how to perceive time, energy, life, and consciousness the way our ancestors once did. Some theorists suggest that ancient sites were aligned along energy grids, meridians, or ley lines, places like Giza, Stonehenge, Angkor. Teotihuacan, when mapped, formed geometric patterns on a planetary scale. Could a flood have buried observation towers, instruments, or markers that allowed such mapping? Could a global network of harmonized architecture have once existed? We often assume such precision belongs only to the modern era, but perhaps we're relearning what was once mastered. What remains are shards, megaliths, myths misinterpreted. Artifacts without context, we mislabel them as tombs when they were temples of sound, as tribal shrines when they were astronomical observatories. The flood may not have just destroyed, it may have fragmented, scattering the pieces across time, oceans, and memory. Our role now is to listen, to reconnect the dots, and to reconsider everything. If a global civilization existed before the flood and was lost, then where did its memory go? The answer may lie in myth. All over the world, cultures preserve tales of great floods, sky gods, sunken lands, ancient teachers, and golden ages. These aren't just bedtime stories, they're fractured echoes of something real, coded memories wrapped in symbolism and story. Japanese myths of Kuni no Tokotachi, Bori legends of the land Hawaii, Dogon stories of Namo from the sky, Polynesian chants of lands swallowed by waves, and even the biblical flood, shared by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Each story may be a fragment like shards of a shattered mirror, but when assembled together, they reflect a haunting possibility that before what we call history, there was another world. Not one of fantasy, but a forgotten chapter of human experience buried beneath mud, time, and disbelief. Perhaps the greatest flood didn't just drown cities, it washed away our memory. If you believe the Great Flood erased more than just land, subscribe and join us as we dive deeper into the forgotten chapters of our human story.